From blindness to the supplement in terms of this problematical scheme, we must therefore think Rousseau's experience and his theory of writing together, the accord and the discord that, under the name of writing, relate Jean-Jacques Rousseau, uniting and dividing his proper name. On the side of experience, a recourse to literature as reappropriation of presence, that is to say, as we shall see, of nature; on the side of theory, an indictment against the negativity of the letter, in which must be read the degeneracy of culture and the disruption of the community. If indeed one wishes to surround it with the entire constellation of concepts that shares its system, the word supplement seems to account for the strange unity of these two gestures. In both cases, in fact, Rousseau considers writing as a dangerous means, a menacing aid, the critical response to a situation of distress. When nature, as self-proximity, comes to be forbidden or interrupted, when speech fails to protect presence, writing becomes necessary. It must be added to the word urgently. I have identified in advance one of the forms of this addition, speech being natural or at least the natural expression of thought, the most natural form of institution or convention for signifying thought, writing is added to it, is adjoined, as an image or representation. In that sense, it is not natural. It diverts the immediate presence of thought to speech into representation and the imagination. This recourse is not only bizarre, but dangerous. It is the addition of a technique, a sort of artificial and artful ruse to make speech present when it is actually absent. It is a violence done to the natural destiny of the language. Languages are made to be spoken, writing serves only as a supplement to speech. Speech represents thought by conventional signs, and writing represents the same with regard to speech. Thus the art of writing is nothing but a mediated representation of thought. Writing is dangerous from the moment that representation there claims to be presence and the sign of the thing itself. And there is a fatal necessity, inscribed in the very functioning of the sign, that the substitute make one forget the vicariousness of its own function and make itself pass for the plenitude of a speech whose deficiency and infirmity it nevertheless only supplements. For the concept of the supplement which here determines that of the representative image harbors within itself two significations whose cohabitation is as strange as it is necessary. The supplement adds itself, it is a surplus, a plenitude enriching another plenitude, the fullest measure of presence. It cumulates and accumulates presence. It is thus that art, technique, image, representation, convention, etc., come as supplements to that dangerous supplement. 145 nature and are rich with this entire cumulating function. This kind of supplementarity determines in a certain way all the conceptual oppositions within which Rousseau inscribes the notion of nature to the extent that it should be self-sufficient. But the supplement supplements. It adds only to replace. It intervenes or insinuates itself in the place of. If it fills, it is as if one fills a void. If it represents and makes an image, it is by the anterior default of a presence. Compensatory supplement and vicarious, the supplement is an adjunct, a subaltern instance which takes the place loge. As substitute, it is not simply added to the positivity of a presence, it produces no relief, its place is assigned in the structure by the mark of an emptiness. Somewhere, something can be filled up of itself, can accomplish itself, only by allowing itself to be filled through sign and proxy. The sign is always the supplement of the thing itself. This second signification of the supplement cannot be separated from the first. We shall constantly have to confirm that both operate within Rousseau's texts. But the inflection varies from moment to moment. Each of the two significations is by turns effaced or becomes discreetly vague in the presence of the other. But their common function is shown in this, whether it adds or substitutes itself, the supplement is exterior, outside of the positivity to which it is superadded, alien to that which, in order to be replaced by it, must be other than it. Unlike the complement, dictionaries tell us, the supplement is an exterior addition, Robert's French Dictionary. According to Rousseau, the negativity of evil will always have the form of supplement to writing. Evil is exterior to nature, to what is by nature innocent and good. It supervenes upon nature. But always by way of compensation for su l'espèce de la subs what ought to lack nothing at all in itself. Thus presence, always natural, which for Rousseau more than for others means maternal, ought to be self-sufficient. Its essence, another name for presence, may be read through the grid of this ought to be ce conditional j. Like nature's love, there is no substitute for a mother's love, says Emile too. It is in no way supplemented, that is to say it does not have to be supplemented, it suffices and is self-sufficient, but that also means that it is irreplaceable, what one would substitute for it would not equal it, would be only a mediocre makeshift. Finally it means that nature does not supplement itself at all, nature's supplement does not proceed from nature, it is not only inferior to but other than nature. Yet all education, the keystone of Rousseauist thought, will be described or presented as a system of substitution supplants destined to reconstitute nature's edifice in the most natural way possible. The first chapter of Emile announces the function of this pedagogy. Although there is no substitute for a mother's love, it is better that the child should suck the breast of a healthy nurse rather than of a petted mother, if he has any further evil to fear from her who has given him birth, Ibid. Po 12j. It is indeed culture or cultivation that must supplement a deficient nature, a deficiency that cannot by definition be anything but an accident and a deviation from nature. Culture or cultivation is here called habit, it is necessary and insufficient from the moment when the substitution of mothers is no longer envisaged only from the physiological point of view. Other women, or even other animals, may give him the milk she denies him, but there is no substitute for a mother's love. The woman who nurses another's child in place of her own is a bad moth. How can she be a good nurse? She may become one in time, use habit will overcome nature. Ibid. Here the problems of natural right, of the relationship between nature and society, the concepts of alienation, and corruption, are adapted most spontaneously to the pedagogic problem of the substitution of mothers and children, and this affection when developed has its drawbacks, which should make every sensible woman afraid to put her child out to nurse. Is she prepared to divide her mother's rights, or rather to abdicate them in favor of a stranger, to see her child loving another as much as and more than herself? Ibid. If, premeditating the theme of writing, I began by speaking of the substitution of mothers, it is because, as Rousseau will himself say, more depends on this than you realize. How emphatically would I speak if it were not so hopeless to keep struggling in vain on behalf of a real reform? More depends on this than you realize. Would you restore all men to their primal duties, begin with the mothers, the results will surprise you. Every evil follows in the train of this first sin, the whole moral order is disturbed, nature is quenched in every breast. P18, P013. Childhood is the first manifestation of the deficiency which, in nature, calls for substitution suppliance. Pedagogy eliminates perhaps more crudely the paradoxes of the supplement. How is a natural weakness possible? How can nature ask for forces that it does not furnish? How is a child possible in general? First maxim: far from being too strong, children are not strong enough for all the claims of nature. Give them full use of such strength as they have and which they will not abuse. Second maxim: help them and supply what they lack, in intelligence or in strength, whenever the need is of the body. P50, P035. All the organization of, and all the time spent in, education will be regulated by this necessary evil, supply suppler. What is lacking? That dangerous supplement. And to replace nature. It must be done as little and as late as possible. One of the best rules of good farming culture is to keep things back as much as possible. P274, Po 193. Give nature time to work before you take over her business. Act in her place as your essay place. P102, italics added, Po 71. Without childhood, no supplement would ever appear in nature. The supplement is here both humanity's good fortune and the origin of its perversion. The health of the human race, plants are fashioned by cultivation, and men by education. If man were born big and strong, his size and strength would be useless to him until he had learned to use them. They would create a prejudice against him, by not allowing others to think of assisting him, and, left to himself, he would die miserably before knowing his needs. We complain of the state of infancy. We do not see that, if man had not begun by being a child, the human race would have perished. P67. The 3 of perversion. While the author of nature has given children the active principle, he takes care that it shall do little harm by giving them small power to use it. But as soon as they can think of people as tools that they are responsible for activating, they use them to carry out their wishes and to supplement their own weakness. This is how they become tiresome, masterful, imperious, naughty, and unmanageable, a development which does not spring from a natural love of power, but one which gives it to them, for it does not need much experience to realize how pleasant it is to act through the hands of others and to move the world by simply moving the tongue. P49, italics added, P034. The supplement will always be the moving of the tongue or acting through the hands of others. In it everything is brought together, progress as the possibility of perversion, regression toward an evil that is not natural and that adheres to the power of substitution that permits us to aspend ourselves and act by proxy, through representation, through the hands of others. Through the written paracrit. This substitution always has the form of a sign. The scandal is that the sign, the image, or the representator, become forces and make the world move. This scandal is such, and its evil effects are sometimes so irreparable, that the world seems to turn the wrong way, and we shall see later what such a catastrophe can signify for Rousseau. Then nature becomes the supplement of art and society. It is the moment when evil seems incurable, as the child does not know how to be cured, let him know how to be ill. The one art takes the place of supply the other and is often more successful. It is the art of nature. P3L, Po 22. It is also the moment when maternal nature, ceasing to be loved, as she ought to be, for herself and in an immediate proximity, 0 nature. 0 my mother. Behold me under thy protection alone. Here there is no cunning or knavish mortal to thrust himself between me and thee. Confession, Book 1 2 J Po 669, becomes the substitute for another love and for another attachment. The contemplation of nature always had a very great attraction for his heart. He found there a supplement to the attachments that he needed, but he would have left the supplement for the thing, if he had had the choice, and he was reduced to converse with the plants only after vain efforts to converse with human beings. Dialogues, P 794. That botany becomes the supplement of society is more than a catastrophe. It is the catastrophe of the catastrophe. For in nature, the plant is the most natural thing. It is natural life. The mineral is distinguished from the vegetable in that it is a dead and useful nature, servile to man's industry. When man has lost the sense and the taste of true natural riches, plant she rummages in the entrails of his mother and risks his health. The mineral kingdom has nothing in itself either amiable or attractive. Its riches, enclosed in the breast womb of the earth, seem to have been removed from the gaze of man in order not to tempt his cupidity. They are there like a reserve to serve one day as a supplement to the true wealth which is more within his grasp, and for which he loses taste according to the extent of his corruption. Then he is compelled to call in industry, to struggle, and to labor to alleviate his miseries. He searches the entrails of earth, he goes seeking to its center, at the risk of his life and at the expense of his health, for imaginary goods in place of the real good which the earth offers of herself if he knew how to enjoy it. He flies from the sun and the day, which he is no longer worthy to see. 3 Man has thus put out his eyes, he blinds himself by the desire to rummage in these entrails. Here is the horrible spectacle of the punishment that follows the crime. In some simple substitution, he buries himself alive, and does well, not being worthy of living in the light of day. Their quarries, pits, forges, furnaces, a battery of anvils, hammers, smoke and fire, succeed to the fair images of his rustic labors. The wan faces of the unhappy people who languish in the poisonous vapors of mines, of black forge men, of hideous cyclops, are the spectacle which the working of the mine substitutes, in the heart womb of the earth for that of green fields and flowers, the azure sky, amorous shepherds and robust laborers upon its surface. 4 Such is the scandal, such the catastrophe. The supplement is what neither nature nor reason can tolerate. Neither nature, our common mother, reveries, P 1066, Po 143, nor the reason which is reasonable, if not reasoning, de elitate nature, P Eliad, Volume 3J, P 478. And had they not done everything to avoid this catastrophe, to protect themselves from this violence and to guard and keep us from this fatal crime? So are that dangerous supplement. That, says the second discourse precisely of minds, it looks as if nature had taken pains to keep the fatal secret from us, P 172, Po 200. And let us not forget that the violence that takes us toward the entrails of the earth, the moment of mind blindness, that is, of metallurgy, is the origin of society. For according to Rousseau, as we shall often confirm, agriculture, marking the organization of civil society, assumes the beginning of metallurgy. Blindness thus produces that which is born at the same time as society, the languages, the regulated substitution of signs for things, the order of the supplement. One goes from blindness to the supplement. But the blind person cannot see, in its origin, the very thing he produces to supplement his sight. Blindness to the supplement is the law. And especially blindness to its concept. Moreover, it does not suffice to locate its functioning in order to see its meaning. The supplement has no sense and is given to no intuition. We do not therefore make it emerge out of its strange penumbra. We speak its reserve. Reason is incapable of thinking this double infringement upon nature, that there is lack in nature and that because of that very fact something is added to it. Yet one should not say that reason is powerless to think this, it is constituted by that lack of power. It is the principle of identity. It is the thought of the self-identity of the natural being. It cannot even determine the supplement as its other, as the irrational and the non-natural, for the supplement comes naturally to put itself in nature's place. The supplement is the image and the representation of nature. The image is neither in nor out of nature. The supplement is therefore equally dangerous for reason, the natural health of reason. Dangerous supplement. These are the words that Rousseau uses in the Confessions. He uses them in a context which is only apparently different, and in order to explain, precisely, a condition almost unintelligible and inconceivable to reason. In a word, between myself and the most passionate lover there was only one, but that an essential, point of distinction, which makes my condition almost unintelligible and inconceivable. Pliad, Volume 1, Po 111. If we lend to the text below a paradigmatic value, it is only provisional and does not prejudge what the discipline of a future reading might rigorously determine. No model of reading seems to me at the moment ready to measure up to this text which I would like to read as a text and not as a document. Measure up to it fully and rigorously, that is, beyond what already makes the text most legible, and more legible than has been so far thought. My only ambition will be to draw out of it a signification which that presumed future reading will not be able to dispense with fair economy, the economy of a written text, circulating through other texts, leading back to it constantly, conforming to the element of a language and to its regulated functioning. For example, what unites the word supple one man to its concept was not invented by Rousseau, and the originality of its functioning is neither fully mastered by Rousseau nor simply imposed by history and the language, by the history of the language. To speak of the writing of Rousseau is to try to recognize what escapes these categories of passivity and activity, blindness and responsibility. And one cannot abstract from the written text to rush to the signified it would mean, since the signified is here the text itself. It is so little a matter of looking for a truth signified by these writings, metaphysical or psychological truth, Jean-Jacques' life behind his work, that if the texts that interest us mean something, it is the engagement and the appurtenance that encompass existence and writing in the same tissue, the same text. The same is here called supplementee, another name for difference. Here is the eruption of the dangerous supplement in nature and nature, between natural innocence as virginity and natural innocence as pucelage asterisk. In a word, between myself and the most passionate lover there was only one, but that an essential, point of distinction, which makes my condition almost unintelligible and inconceivable. Here, the lineation should not hide the fact that the following paragraph is destined to explain the only one point of distinction and the almost unintelligible and inconceivable condition. Rousseau elaborates, I had returned from Italy not quite the same as I had entered it, but as, perhaps, no one of my age had ever returned from it. I had brought back, not my virginity but my pucelage. I had felt the progress of years, my restless temperament had at last made itself felt, and its first outbreak, quite involuntary, had caused me alarm about my health in a manner which shows better than anything else the innocence in which I had lived up to that time. Soon reassured, I learned that dangerous means of assisting it ce dangerous supplement J, which cheats nature and saves up for young men of my temperament many forms of excess at the expense of their health, strength, and, sometimes, their life. Pliad, I, pages 108-09 POILLJ. We read in Emile, Book 4, if once he acquires this dangerous habit supplement he is ruined. Po 299. In the same book, it is also a question of macking up by trading on inexperience supplier and gagnant de vitesse L experience, literally supplementing by outdistancing experience, P 437, Po 315, and of the mind, which reinforces supply the bodily strength, P 183, P 129J. The experience of autoeroticism is lived in anguish. Masturbation reassures, soon reassured, only through that culpability traditionally attached to the practice, obliging children to assume the fault and to asterisk selage is the more earthy French word for the actual physical fact of sexual intactness, in the female the membrane itself. Rousseau applies the word to his own case with some derision, contrasting it to the spiritual innocence of true virginity. Dangerous supplement. Interiorize the threat of castration that always accompanies it. Pleasure is thus lived as the irremediable loss of the vital substance, as exposure to madness and death. It is produced at the expense of their health, strength, and, sometimes, their life. In the same way, the reveries will say, the man who searches the entrails of earth goes seeking to its center, at the risk of his life and at the expense of his health, for imaginary goods in place of the real good which the earth offers of herself if he knew how to enjoy it. Pliad, Volume 1, 1067 Po 145. And indeed it is a question of the imaginary. The supplement that cheats maternal nature operates as writing, and as writing it is dangerous to life. This danger is that of the image. Just as writing opens the crisis of the living speech in terms of its image, its painting or its representation, so onanism announces the ruin of vitality in terms of imaginary seductions. This vice, which shame and timidity find so convenient, possesses, besides a great attraction for lively imaginations, that of being able to dispose of the whole sex as they desire, and to make the beauty which tempts them minister to their pleasures, without being obliged to obtain its consent. Confessions, P 111. The dangerous supplement, which Rousseau also calls a fatal advantage, is properly seductive. It leads desire away from the good path, makes it err far from natural ways, guides it toward its loss or fall, and therefore it is a sort of lapse or scandal, scandalon. It thus destroys nature. But the scandal of reason is that nothing seems more natural than this destruction of nature. It is myself who exerts myself to separate myself from the force that nature has entrusted to me. Seduced by this fatal advantage, I did my best to destroy the good constitution which nature had restored to me, and to which I had allowed time to strengthen itself. We know what importance Emile gives to time, to the slow maturation of natural forces. The entire art of pedagogy is a calculated patience, allowing the work of nature time to come to fruition, respecting its rhythm and the order of its stages. The dangerous supplement destroys very quickly the forces that nature has slowly constituted and accumulated. In outdistancing natural experience, it runs non-stop rule tapes, literally burns the halting points and consumes energy without possibility of recovery. As I shall confirm, like the sign it bypasses the presence of the thing and the duration of being. The dangerous supplement breaks with nature. The entire description of this moving away from nature has a scene theater. The confession stage the evocation of the dangerous supplement at the moment when it is a question of making visible a distancing which is neither the same nor another. Nature draws away at the same time as the mother, or rather 152 Part 2, Nature, Culture, writing Mama, who already signified the disappearance of the true mother and has substituted herself in the well-known ambiguous manner. It is therefore now a question of the distance between Mama and the person she called Little 15. As Emile says, all evil comes from the fact that women have ceased to be mothers, they do not and will not return to their duty, P 18, Po 14. A certain absence, then, of a certain sort of mother. and the experience of which we speak is such as to reduce that absence as much as to maintain it. A furtive experience, that of a thief who needs invisibility, that the mother be invisible and not see. These lines are often quoted. I should never have done, if I were to enter into the details of all the follies which the remembrance of this dear mamma caused me to commit when I was no longer in her presence. How often have I kissed my bed, since she had slept in it, my curtains, all the furniture of my room, since they belonged to her, and her beautiful hand had touched them, even the floor, on which I prostrate myself, since she had walked upon it. Sometimes, even in her presence, I was guilty of extravagances, which only the most violent love seemed capable of inspiring. At table one day, just when she had put a piece of food into her mouth, I exclaimed that I saw a hair in it. She put back the morsel on her plate, and I eagerly seized and swallowed it. 6 In a word, between myself and the most passionate lover there was only one, but that an essential point of distinction, which makes my condition almost unintelligible and inconceivable. A little above, we read I only felt the full strength of my attachment when I no longer saw her. P. 107, pp. 11011.